Hello, folks. Welcome to another edition of Al's Joint. I'll be joined today by my co-host Dennis Painter as we jump right into the fight coming out of Washington, D.C. So as we pay homage to Marvin Gaye, one of the best that ever did it, and after the dam, let's take the gloves off and let's get at it.
We supported him for 10 years, and I'm 11, and you betrayed us for Israel, and that's crazy. You're also in the Epstein files. We can't respect pedophiles.
Kind of sad, huh? Really is kind of sad.
Hello, Brother Painter. I wanted to start off the podcast with that video because it appears to be a lot of flag burning and folks turning on MAGA. And hopefully, folks are waking up and they understand we got a grifter and a pedophile and a con artist and a rapist and 100 other things we can call him. But what are your thoughts on that video?
Well, I saw a very young boy that has more sense and more common sense than a lot of the MAGA folks on the right. And he's saying right up front, you told me this, I believed it. Now I find it to be a lie. I no longer support you. That takes more backbone than grown men on the MAGA side. So I thought it was wonderful. To me, it seems like a shift. I'm not going to call it a movement at this point, but there's a shift to saying, I believe him. I believe Trump. I believe in what he's saying, and now I find out he's nothing but a liar. And it's great that it's not only people, but it's filtered down to the next generation as well. Don't believe what the 30-second TV spot tells you, or what a politician, a billionaire, or a millionaire gets up and tells you. Look for what's behind the scenes. I think that was an excellent thing in burning the Trump flag. There's going to be more of it.
Well, we got a ways to go before the midterm. Actually, if you think about it, it's right around the corner.
Right.
But in politics, a week is a year, right? With the news cycle. So when I say we have a while to go, I don't mean literally. I mean that there's so much stuff that's going to happen before now and then, and we have to be ready for it because it has to scare folks to know that when a man's being portrayed as a pedophile and he's a rapist and he's a felon, and it backs up against the wall. He knows what's coming. If the Democrats or independents take over Congress or the Senate, it's going to be a hell of a last 2 years for him, and he knows it. So, folks, people got to wake up and understand they're coming. They're going to come after the midterms with everything they got. They have to.
Yeah, and I figure that Trump's going to do something very drastic, and we have to be prepared for that, and not just prepared for what he's going to do, but prepared to protect our country and our Constitution, because that's what he has to dismantle to overcome the midterms. And so we have to be prepared for it. We can do it. We just have to believe in ourselves and believe that right is right and wrong is wrong, and we're going to get rid of the wrong.
Well, and you have a man in President Trump, who's a sexist. We already know that he's a pedophile. He's a punk. He's a rapist. He's a grifter. But when you get the leader of your country at his daily press conferences, and he only seems to want to attack women who ask legitimate questions. And I know that I became a fan of Caitlin Collins from CNN because she just does her job. She's what old reporters used to do. older folks remember the press when they would just ask hard, direct, real questions. And she still does that now. And then you have now you had the woman, I believe her name was Christian Holmes. She's the one he just insulted this past week. He asked her questions about Natalie Harp, his so-called private assistant, and what Ossoff, the senator that's running for re-election in Georgia, raised a question. It was a legitimate question. You know, you were attacking Ossoff, and he in return said that you would rather spend more time with Harp and building your ballroom and all this other bullshit than you are running the country. And he got angry at her and attacked her like he always do. He always attacks women.
Quiet. You're very disrespectful in front of this young man. Okay? Don't you find her disrespectful? He understands. Quiet. Who are you with?
I'm with CNN.
Fake news.
I
You're
just wanted
fake
to follow
news.
up on this out-
You're a loud, boisterous person. You're fake news.
I was
Be
trying to
quiet.
find out if
Be
you had
quiet.
been talking
Be
to
quiet.
Sam, or if he had asked you
You're a
to
fake
stand up
reporter, and you
on the
report fake
military
news.
exercise.
Go ahead.
And but she stood her ground. So good for her. Good for you, Ms. Holmes, for doing what you had to do to maintain your integrity as a member of the press.
Well, I wish more of the press had the courage that those women had, because that's really what freedom of the press is about. It isn't about me backing down because you belittle me on national TV or you attack me on national TV. Freedom of the press means that I get to ask the questions, and you're not going to dictate through bullying what those questions are going to be. That's what is happening. Trump is trying to bully these press people into asking quote unquote safe questions, okay, and not put him on the spot for what is the truth. What is he really doing? What has he really done? Where does he stand, whether it be with the Iran war or with our troops that are not being fed on the ships out there, or whether it's the Epstein files? They're legitimate issues for the American public. When you run for office, that's part of it. You got to learn to take the heat with it. But he gets defensive, especially with women. You know, how dare you question me? I'm the Almighty. Well, he's not the Almighty. And I think the press, more of the press, should understand that. And what I find interesting is that here you have these women doing the right thing, asking the tough questions, and they're taking some flack over it from him, but they're still doing it. And then you got the men like cowards in the press. And the men should grow some more backbone. They need to get a transfusion from some of these women and get some backbone.
Agreed. They have, and I want to show this clip from Katie Fang, who is an independent journalist, and I believe she's also a lawyer, but she sued the Department of Justice for information on the Epstein file. And she had some words to say about Christian Welker and her interview of Todd Blanche from the Department of Justice, and rightfully so, because let's take a look at it real quick.
Attorney General of the United States, Todd Blanche, sat down for an interview with Kristen Welker at Meet the Press, a storied, or used to be, program for NBC News where leaders of the free world would come. And the people that are running this country, albeit shittily so far, into the ground, really, at this rate, would come and sit down and participate in a discourse which is supposed to have a purpose, right? It's supposed to be able to do more than be performative and to do more than just check the box for Sunday morning programming. And yet on August 16th, just a mere, 3 days after a major hearing in my lawsuit against Todd Blanche, seeking the production of the unredacted Epstein files, unredacted to the extent that the federal law, the Epstein Files Transparency Act, allows Attorney General Todd Blanche to be able to redact, I heard not a single question asked by Kristen Welker of Todd Blanche about my lawsuit, number one, and just even bigger picture, number two, about the Epstein files. How is it possible that you have the man, the highest person in the Department of Justice, you have him sitting in front of you and you don't ask him one damn question about the Epstein files? Not a single one? It is not only alarming, and yet it's typical. Take a listen to what Todd Blanche had to say here about whether or not he would be willing to pledge that the Justice Department will always act independently of the White House. Take a listen to Blanche's response.
Well, there's a big difference between saying we will always do our job and investigate any case and act independently of the White House. No, I'm not going to pledge that, and no attorney general should ever pledge that.
But why not? I mean, that's when if I had Todd Blanche sitting in front of me and he said, quote, "There's a big difference between saying we will always do our job and investigate any case and act independently of the White House. No, I'm not going to pledge that, and no attorney general should ever pledge that to the president." I would have immediately interjected and said, but why not? Why not pledge that a federal agency that has the power to imprison people, a federal agency that has the power to be able to do subpoenas in an intrusive manner, right? I mean, why not pledge that you controlling that federal agency will always maintain your independence?
So, and we've discussed on this program many a times, we agree with that the press need to grow a bigger pair or a pair at all, because it seems like the only people who are asking these tough questions or get in the middle of these fights are these women. And these women reporters and women correspondents. But this Katie Fang is saying, basically, we need to stop having these folks on and not asking them the hard questions. Where is the question on what's going on with Epstein file? How can you have Todd Blanche on any interview and not mention the Epstein files?
Well, they're playing it safe. And of course, Trump has threatened through the FCC that, the people's license could be pulled and all that. And the one thing about bullies, if the media would realize a bully is a bully, when you stand up to them, you find out that they're a bully and they're going to back down because they're not as tough as they sound. They're not as smart as they think they are. And if you stand up to them, you're going to gain ground. And that's unfortunately the media, heads of media want to back down, or they're friends of Trump. So for me, it's more needs to be done in that aspect.
Well, the questions are there. American taxpayers are getting fleeced. The oil companies, at the rate they're going now, the oil companies are going to increase their profits. This isn't their profits, but increase their profits by about $150 billion this year. If the quarter repeats itself, at the first quarter this year repeats itself, they're on pace to make about $150 billion more than what they made last year. And don't forget, the oil in this country did not go up. This is just them saying, hey, we making money around the world. Let's get American taxpayers, let's fleece them too. I'm not talking about what they're making in other countries or around the world. We're just talking about in this country. And that is highway robbery.
Right. And that's the effect of this runaway, I call it the mob government, that's allowing them to do it. And there's no oversight. And you take a look, there seems to be a tremendous interest by Trump and his friends in oil. And, this is the end result, is there's no real true oversight, and gouging is fine. And the American public needs to understand what's happening in Iran has no real true impact on what's happening in America other than the oil companies have found an excuse to increase the cost of fuel, which increases the cost of everything else that we do. You know, our travel to work, our travel for vacations, you know, the clothing that has to be shipped to us, you know, everything gets increased simply because the oil companies see an opportunity to fleece the American taxpayer. So we're being abused by Trump in so many ways, and this is just another way. And his cast of characters that's helping him, one cast is the oil companies. I mean, they're helping him, you know, and they're all in favor of just continuing the Iran war, in my opinion.
Not just the oil companies, right?
No, you're right. It's not just the oil companies. I mean, when you look, I mean, we talked about this previously. Americans are getting gouged in every possible way you can imagine. Okay, whether it be the food prices, whether it be the gas prices, whether it be the clothing prices, whether it be the housing prices, whether it be, you know, interest rates, they're up, you know. And then you take a look at what is the economy really doing. The economy actually shrank. You know, they didn't have the job increase in numbers that we're supposed to have. They projected it's, you know, we're headed into a recession, it appears. And recession obviously is going to hurt the American public worse than it's going to hurt a millionaire or a billionaire. And why we keep electing these millionaires and billionaires into office thinking they're going to represent us just blows my mind.
We got the Trump family making billions with the inside stock trading, the money they're taking from the pay to play. If you scratch my back, I'll give you $1 billion contract. It's gotten to the point now where they don't even give a damn anymore what people think. They're just going to make as much money as they can and carry it out of the White House at the end of his term. That's what he plans on doing. He doesn't give a damn what people think about him. His political career is over after this term. No matter what anybody thinks, his political career is over. If he survives, and I say that because as fat and out of shape as he is, he's not a candidate for to live into his even his mid-80s. He's in that bad of a shape. But by that time, he's fleeced the country, and him and his billionaire buddies. When I say the Trump family, I don't just mean Donald and Donald Jr. and Eric and whoever the other hell folks are in his family. I'm talking about his billionaire club. That's his family. That's who's making trillions of dollars off this country. You better hope they don't get their hands on Social Security, because they've been eyeing that. You're talking about trillions of dollars that they want to get their hands on.
Yep, and they want to take that away from the American Republic, and people need to fully understand that all they care about is money, and there's no end to how much they want. Okay, they can't spend all the money they're pulling in. It's just who's going to be the richest person. You know, how many more billions can I make? I'm successful. I made more billions, but how much money does people really need? And in the end, you know, we're down here struggling. You know, we're the ones that pay for it. And then you talk about Social Security, you're right. They've been eyeing Social Security because they can get their hands on it. That was one of the things that Elon Musk was talking about. And they closed a bunch of Social Security offices and laid off a bunch of people. And that did not make Social Security services, it didn't improve them or didn't make them more efficient. And what happens is people start complaining. Then that's the mechanism to say, oh, well, that's the reason that we need to take it over. Versus, no, you created the problem in Social Security by closing all those offices and laying those people off. Now, and that's their plan, is to get their hands on the money, you know. And so we're gonna, you know, we got a bigger fight. And look, by and large, you know, once again, we pay into that Social Security. The working class pays into that Social Security to get it. Not for Elon Musk to get it, not for the billionaires to get it. So we will have enough money to live into retirement somewhat comfortable. And if, you know, that's what that money's for. And they want to take that from us. And their opinion is if you're not working, you're of no value.
Well,
least
well,
not-
the one thing I want to piggyback on is when you say that folks can live off of Social Security comfortably, right? If you don't have an additional retirement plan, whether it be a pension, a hallelujah trade unions, or a 401k or something else that was offered to you, you're going to be barely surviving, even on Social Security, if that's all you're getting. You can ask folks if that's all they get, you'll see that they're barely existing. So when you
Right.
start talking about cutting Social Security, those folks are living from check to check, month to month. And the only thing you're going to do is be going against everything that Social Security was meant to do, which was allow those folks to at least survive. And that's
Right.
what most folks on Social Security are doing. Well, a lot of folks don't understand that because they think, oh, you get Social Security, you're okay. You don't work anymore. You still have to live. You still have to pay some type of housing, whether it's taxes on a house you paid off your whole life while you were getting, or you live in some retirement home where you got to pay, or a retirement villa. You still gotta, if you wanna, you need transportation. If you can't afford a car on Social Security, which most folks can, you got to catch the bus, or you got to catch an Uber, or whatever else means of transport. You still got to eat. You still got to clothe yourself. You still got to have some form of existence. You can't just
Right.
get up, eat the minimum amount, go to sleep, get up, do that again till you die. That's not existing. So you're right when you say they don't think that we contribute as retirees. They want us gone.
Right. They want the money that we put in that Social Security, so, instead of working for ourselves all those years so we could have at least some income, they want us to have worked all those years so they could have additional billions, trillions of dollars. And you talk about the Social Security not being able to survive off of that. That's true. Or you can survive barely. You can get food and that kind of thing, but you can't do any extras. You really got to cut back. I went to a seminar. This is when I was working as a union rep. It was given by these people promoting business ideas. And they didn't know. I walked in. There was a lot of people there. I walked in. No one knew I was a union rep. They thought I was wearing a suit and all that, like I normally did. And they talked about their plan. And they said, "What happened in 1977?" No one knew. They said, "We introduced the 401k plan." And he said, "We did it to do away with the defined pension benefit. So now, with a 401k, the employee takes all the risks, not the employer." And essentially they have accomplished that. There's no real defined benefit plans out there anymore. So there's some plans that, the employer contributes a certain amount, but after that, it's up to the employee to watch that 401k. And unfortunately, people dip into it. But part of that seminar is saying, look, we're patient. We have a longer range plan. And that long range plan is there will be no more paid vacations. That's up to them, up to the worker to figure out how to save for a paid vacation. We won't have paid sick days. That's going to be up to the worker to figure that out. Okay. We're not paying for those things. We're patient. We got a long-term plan. We're going to do away with those things. And that's what that seminar was all about.
And let's touch base a little bit on these constant debates now. They're flooding the internet, Democrats versus Republicans, and who's what, and they're not much different. And one thing that the MAGA folks are doing now, since they're losing the argument of what Trump is, now their argument is, well, neither one is good. They can't, right? That's their fallback position now. But I want to make sure folks understand, and we're going to list some of the things here in comparison. I want folks to quit having debates over whether you have a D or an R, right? And let's start having the discussion on whether you're progressive or conservative, because that splits the argument more, a more defined split in the argument. Let's put it that way. Let's start with the conservatives. Conservatives brought you slavery. They brought you Jim Crow. They fought against civil rights. They fought against women's rights. They fought against Social Security. They still fight against any health care assistance for the citizens. They fought against the 8-hour workday, the 40-hour work week, overtime, all that. Conservatives fought against it throughout history. So no matter how you flipped it, because you'll hear them say Abraham Lincoln was a Republican. He freed the slave. Back then, the Republican parties were progressive, and it changed. And so don't worry about who was labeled a Republican or a Democrat. Look at the platform. Now here comes the progressives. They fought against slavery. They fought against Jim Crow. They fought for blacks and women to have the right to vote in this country. They fought against segregation. They fought for Social Security. They fought for health care. They fought for the 40-hour work week, the 8-hour work day, for child labor laws. You wouldn't have vacation days if it wasn't for progressives fighting for those things. You wouldn't have sick days at work. You look at it as normal now, but it wasn't always normal. Go back to the beginning of the 20th century and see what rights working class folks had.
Well, and I've actually had this conversation with people and saying, they were like, "Oh, you're left-wing socialists and all that." And we live in a semi-socialist country as it is. Okay, we take our money and we fund the roads and the fire departments and all of that. Now, the companies need that. The billionaires need that to make their money. But when you get into this conversation about conservative versus whether it be a progressive or a socialist, whatever, what I did was saying, okay, you think that progressives or socialists are wrong, then give up your Social Security. Go tell your boss that you don't want overtime anymore. You'll work straight time no matter how many hours it is per week. Go and tell them you don't want paid holidays anymore. Okay, go tell them you don't want paid vacation or paid health care anymore. Go tell your boss that, because you don't believe in those things. Because those are the things that, whether you call us the left, the progressive, socialist, communist, whatever you want to call us, those are the things that American workers fought for. And I always say, what happened to the A? And the A is, I am an American first. Okay? Then I have these things that I believe in. I believe in national health care. I believe in good education for all children. I believe in good, jobs for everybody. I believe in Social Security and retirement. I believe in those things. I am an American, and I believe those things. And we should be working towards that instead of sending our money to the billionaires, here and abroad. And that's where our money's going. And we should be talking about that. I'm an American. That money should go towards us.
And it's not just billionaires telling us, hey, follow us. They've convinced conservative taxpayers to fight their fight for them. Donald Trump did it. He wasn't the first one. This has been going on. Billionaires have convinced conservative taxpayers to fight their fight for them, and they fall for it every damn time. Every damn time they fall.
All right. I'm going to draw a distinction between a conservative and people who just have no friggin' knowledge and no common sense. Because what they do is they take people with no common sense and say, our fight really isn't our fight, it's your fight, go fight it. Go say that people of color are taking advantage of the situation, that unions took advantage of the situation. We don't need unions anymore. And all of that, So what they've done is they've convinced this certain group, I don't even call them conservatives, and I don't even think they care about themselves really, but they don't know how to use common sense and they don't know what effects those things are having. Living in a red state is, if you live in a red state overall, it is the poorest states in the nation. Okay? It's not rocket science. Look it up. In the red states, it is not people of color that get most of the social services. It is Anglo-Saxons. I've looked it up. It's Anglo-Saxon because I got in a discussion with somebody and they were spouting all this stuff about what people were getting this with immigrants. I didn't believe them, so I looked it up. And the states I looked up was Maine, Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana, and Virginia. And every single one of them, Anglo-Saxons was getting most of the social services. Now, do you think that that's quote unquote right-wing conservative group will agree to that? I'm getting something for free. And this is what I heard a right-wing conservative say. If they giving all this to these immigrants, I'm gonna get some of it too. They're justifying that they're taking tax money through social services. So I don't want to get too far off on that, but that stuff with being a conservative, they're not even conservatives. They're not. They're non-thinkers. You know, it's like you talked about last week. A guy with two teeth saying had a 2028 Trump T-shirt on. You know, this economy is worse off than it was before him, and he can't see.
And you know, there are billionaires that have more yachts than some people in those 4 states have teeth. I'll say it again.
Yeah.
It just befuddles me how the folks will just fight against their own best interests. And it's happened throughout history. It's been successful. They know it. All you have to do, and I think I said this on a podcast, not the last one, the prior one, that Stalin had called his generals in, and he took a chicken and he plucked the chicken, all the feathers out of the chicken. And that people don't realize that hurts chickens, right? And then when he's done, the chicken was running around naked with bruises, all little blood seeping out of him. And he took some little corn seed and he put it in front of the chicken. The chicken ran up to him, ate out of his hand. And he said, "I just want you to know, no matter what you do to the poor folks, you give them some crumbs and they'll come running back out of you and eat out of your hand." And that message is as clear as it can get.
Well, I believe that's the mindset of Donald Trump. He believes that no matter what he does to a certain group of people, they're going to follow it. Because in his mind, they're dumb.
Well, we'll see. I don't want to lead this program without us giving an update on the Iran war. And I just got some information a little earlier before we started the podcast that some reporters were reporting that they were contemplating using a nuclear weapon in Iran. And the White House was quick to put some out on that. But they didn't deny it. They pretty much was saying who's leaking information. And that's scary because at this particular point, Iran has us over a barrel. And,
no pun intended.
No pun intended, right?
You weren't talking about an oil barrel, but
yeah, they got up over a barrel. And you have a president and administration don't have a fucking clue on what to do. They didn't know before, they didn't know during, they don't know now. And so anything's possible. And information like that does not get out unless somebody heard it and they're afraid inside the administration. So the alarm, the phone call is coming from inside the house.
Well, if you take a look at what's happened, obviously Trump thought it would be a cakewalk like Venezuela, and it hasn't been. And so, and he's up against it. Iran's told him flat out, we're not going to agree with a ceasefire anymore until there's an agreement for a total cease of war, end of it. And we're not going to do that. And now we want more. We want the Americans to pay for what you destroyed. Okay. And we want, to be able to charge the ships coming through the Strait of Hormuz. Now, the other thing, I had not heard the thing about the nuclear weapon, but I did read that Trump is now threatening Oman, which is a country that is working with Iran to come to some kind of deal on the Strait of Hormuz. Trump is saying that if Oman does that, then they're going to bomb Oman. They're going to start another war in another country if they reach that deal.
Well,
So it's
do we have
everything
any
is-
bombs left?
well, it's every piece of information, it seems, that's coming out that makes their warning signs are being ignored, not just by Trump, but by Pete Hegseth as well. And Iran has said that America started this war with no plan. Now, we've said it too, but Iran is saying you started this war with no plan, and now you don't know how to end it. You're incompetent. And they particularly said Pete Hegseth is incompetent, and doesn't know what he's doing. And the world has seen that Trump is incompetent. He doesn't know what he's doing related to this war. That's why our allies won't get involved, because they see it's wrong, it's illegal, there's no end to it. And the only way, I think if there was a nuclear weapon dropped, that's going to make things worse, because Trump everything he's done is destroyed more and more things. It hasn't made anything better, except for his billionaire buddies.
Agreed.
So I had not heard that about, and that is scary about the nuclear weapon.
And we'll definitely be reporting on it on the next episode. I want to thank you for contributing again, and I look forward to talking to you next week.
Okay, brother. You take
All right,
care.
Take care, partner. Well, folks, we've come to the end of another episode. I want to thank folks for watching. Don't forget to hit the share, like, and subscribe buttons below so we can stay in this struggle. And please leave your comments below, because we're interested in what you're thinking. Unless you're a far right wing MAGA nut, we don't give a damn what you're thinking. So until next week, remember, stay in the resistance. Peace.
This segment of Al's Joint is brought to you by J-Pack Trucking.